in Prague. Thank you very much for joining me today in my home studio, my little office here, for a very, very special time that I'm going to introduce you to my very, very new course, which is the Intuitive Tarot, Doorway to the Divine Intuitive, Doorway to Divine Wisdom. And I've been working on this course for many years, 2 years to 3 years, with my good friend Liz Cook, who has been really involved with the school for many, many years. I worked together for at least 10 years, I believe. And Liz has really helped create this course with me and really has gone even more in depth than I even thought my astrology course was. So I want to bring Liz on in this little introduction today of the course. Liz Cook, you're on. Hi, Liz.
Hi, James. And
hi, Liz.
Welcome to our webinar. We're talking about the 5 scariest cards in the tarot and why you don't have to be afraid of them. So James and I, James is a medium, and sometimes people are afraid of death, right? So James has done, his work is to really debunk and take away that fear of death so people can live their best life. And we're doing the same thing today with the tarot. We're going to talk about the 5 cards. Actually, we've added a bonus, so that we're going to talk about 6 cards that you never really ideally want to see in a draw when you're doing a reading, but why they're really nothing to be worried about.
And you call them the Yikes cards, which I think is great. The Yikes, and it's so true. When someone gets them in a spread, like, ooh, like death means that, or the tower, oh, I'm not sure. So that's really, really important that they understand that's not exactly what it means, right? It's a symbolic.
Right. And like we talk about a lot, those cards don't mean, hey, everything's going to be smooth and easy. There is going to be a little chaos and a little disruption. But like we always say, if you want an omelet, you have to break a few eggs. And these are cards like that are like, hey, in order to, get clarity or reach a higher level of consciousness or make that move or take that risk, it's a little uncomfortable. But
and Liz, I just want to interrupt for a second by saying that when you were here with me, we were filming this course, and Liz did different spreads, and I did some spreads, but you went very really it's so intuitive. And what you're saying, which was really great, because we were reading a friend of ours, a mutual friend, but you went deep and stuff I didn't know, and you didn't know, and it was like, and it was not necessarily good or bad. It was just like lessons, or was things to look out for. It was nothing really good or bad. It was just be aware of, right? So it's a divination tool to guide us, wouldn't you say?
I mean, I would say it's a divination tool for sure. I would also say, and that's why we called the course, our tarot course that we created, Doorway to Divine Wisdom, is I feel like the tarot cards open doors, not just fortune telling doors, but doors to your own self-awareness. It's reminding you of those things that you deep down, right? Yeah. So it's just tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, like we'll talk about the devil card, like, hey, there are things that you're doing that are destructive and you're in the grip of something, but you have the power to release yourself from that. And so
it's not a literal meaning on the cards. Like when you see that face card, it's not a literal meaning, right?
No.
It's kind of a window, if you will.
It's a window. And the reader, through their intuition, the person reading the cards will get a hit on what that means. And then also the person, it's really a two-way street. The person receiving the reading will also it'll probably hit them right away. Like, oh, I think that's what this is about. This is about this relationship, or this is about my job, or this is about this situation. So
and can anybody do tarot cards? Can anybody start using them to really enhance their intuition, you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can use tarot cards for all kinds of things. Yeah. Lots of people have an app on their phone and they just see a card every day, and it kind of sets the mood for that day. And again, even if you got a card that was a little bit of a yikes card, and sometimes you do, it doesn't mean you're going to have a bad day. It just means, hey, be aware of your destructive, be aware of those repetitive patterns those things you're repeating, or be aware of this. It's just it's just an eye opener.
It's like the universe inspires for our highest good. And these are just ways the universe is letting you know to look out for things, nothing to be scared of, be aware, kind of, right?
Right. And I always tell people, when they ask, because, you and I have worked together for so long, and they ask, like, what's it like to work for a medium? And isn't that scary? People are dead people. And it's like, it's the opposite of scary, because knowing that your loved ones are around you and knowing that you don't have to fear death is so freeing. And that allows you to live your life.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of scary.
And the tarot with me, Liz, when we did the course, which I was really amazed, and you said, let's do it, and then you had an idea about doing it this way, was the actual tarot reading, what you feel intuitively, and then what did I pick up? and if were they similar or not. And sometimes most of the times, it pretty much were.
Sure. But I think there are cards. I mean, everyone I know that reads, I don't know 1,000 people that read tarot, but the people I know that read tarot and like the tarot, we all have our cards that we like. We have our cards that we like to see. We have our cards that we don't really like to see. And they're not the same for everybody. Like we all get, I remember you saying, oh, the strength card makes me a little nervous. And it's like, well, that's funny. Yeah, because it's not a scary, it's usually considered a positive card. But we all have cards. The Chariot, for me, makes me a little nervous. And there's nothing wrong with that card either. And we're not saying there's anything wrong, but there's something about those cards that hit us a certain way. And
right.
I think
So the death card we're going to talk about tonight, and the death card, for me, I love the death card, which is really funny. But for me, it's all about endings and transformation. It's not about death, it's endings, transformations, and new beginnings.
So. Well, the death card is really one of the most, it's actually a happy card. It's a very, very positive card. And this is the traditional, rider deck. And this is the, very traditional, typical depiction of death and, the Grim Reaper on the horse. But you notice he's carrying a flag. He's not carrying a scythe, right? Or, he's not carrying the big stick with a blade on it. Right. He's carrying a flag with a white flower, which signifies rebirth, right? So, exactly. And that's really what we do in our course is we teach people to look for the clues in the cards to really be able to read the cards at a glance.
That was the most incredible part that you put in there, was looking at them and getting the clues from the cards, which you can look at it intuitively and feel something, but then you'd say, well, look deeper, and there are clues all over them. Like, oh my gosh, I've never seen it that way. And oh, wow, it opens up a whole new perspective of looking at the cards.
Right. And what we do in our course is we look at not only the symbols, like the obvious symbols, like a flag with a flower on it, or a skull, or a rising sun. There's also a rising sun on the death card. And that means that even though death is an ending, there's a new day coming. And those are just things that are really very, you look at them and once you know how to look, what to look for, when you know to look, for water and the meaning of water and all the different symbols, and also the numbers in the cards. Like we're going to talk about a couple of 5 cards later, the 5 of Pentacles and the 5 of Cups. And just knowing it's a 5 card tells you that there's a transition happening in that card. Just there's numerology, there's astrology, there's the elements in the card of water, fire, air, and earth. There's the symbols. There's so much. And when you know those,
I know that's why you showed me that. And I've been reading cards, the tarot cards, for a while, but I hadn't seen the elements like you pointed out, and all the different symbols. It was like, wow. And they're just so kind of old, old Celtic and old tradition. And it's like, it makes a lot of sense.
I love the tarot. When I started playing around with the tarot cards about 20 years ago.
Yes. How did you get started with it? I wanted to ask you that because I didn't know this about Liz. So Liz, tell me, because I don't know your full background with the tarot.
So I was working, I had a corporate job, and I happened to go to Sedona for a company trip. And of course, Sedona has all kinds of, spiritual shops, even back then.
Right.
So I bought it. I had my tarot cards read, and I don't really remember the reading that well. I don't remember it being that amazing. It was fine. But what I did is there was a deck of cards, and I bought it, and I started reading, and I bought a book. And I just started really studying the tarot. I was fascinated by the cards and the artwork on the cards. And I just loved it from the very start. And just over time, I started buying more decks and more books and studying more and watching videos. And, I just basically studied up on it for 20 years. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been really started during COVID. We didn't have much to do. And so I was doing readings for people. And I just got, I really love it. I just found it so interesting. And, you and I work together. So the intuitive part is really important to me too. I mean, it's one thing to learn the cards. Anyone can do that and anyone can look them up, but using your intuition, it's a way to both give you a better understanding of the cards and also kind of strengthen your intuitive abilities.
Oh, and it adds so much more of an awareness to all of it, and an awareness to life. And it's almost like little signposts along your way. Like when you think of tarot cards, a signpost along your life, a signpost. So that was pretty incredible. And yeah, the signs of awareness as well. It's pretty cool.
But what also is funny is, it's one thing to do a reading, like people look at the Celtic Cross reading where you're laying out all these cards and they all have the place that they're in, has all the significance, but you can just draw one card and you can doodle. Like today, I was, we were going to talk about the Tower card, And so I drew the Tower
Look at
card and
you.
I started drawing my impressions of it and writing down some thoughts and some clues and some songs that it reminds me of. And, and it just gives you this understanding. And you could do that every day with a card and just like incorporate that card into your day and think about it and think about the meaning of it and what it means to you and your experiences. And, there's 78 cards in the tarot, but it's a really fun way to it's a fun way to tap into your intuition and into your creativity.
Yeah, sure. And really it is, let me ask you a question. When you talk about your history of it and buying all those cards, the books, was there a certain deck that really resonated with, or certain decks or certain books of, tarot that you really resonate? Others you thought, no, this doesn't feel right to me?
There were some decks that didn't feel right. And I've always, kind of given those away, but I have a couple, I really like the basic deck, the basic rider deck, because it, the symbols are so clear, it's so easy to read and they're so great. I mean, they're such classic symbols.
Yeah.
And, you've seen them, a million, we've all seen the Fool card and the Magician, and, they're just so iconic and I love them. But also like I have some like female, like there's like a goddess deck, and then there's a crow deck with crows. And I noticed you get a different type of reading from different types of decks, for me.
Yeah, last week I was in New Jersey doing a tour in New Jersey. I went to a bookstore, I think it was a New Age bookstore. And there was a shelf of tarot cards. And I couldn't believe how many decks there were. I was like, wow. And there were like
so many, yeah.
So many of them now. So you want to start going to like 5 cards? You want to talk about 5?
We want to talk about the five, Yikes cards, the cards.
Yikes cards. Yikes cards, yes.
And again, I think there's some common theme. What's interesting about those cards, especially, so the tarot is broken up into the major arcana cards, which are the Fool's Journey, that start with the Fool, which is 0, and go to 21, ending with the World. So it's sort of this journey of this naive young man and how he's traveling basically through life and meeting people and having experiences. And then the rest of the tarot deck are the 4 suits. There's the Wands, the Cups, the Pentacles, and the Swords. And each of those represents sort of a different aspect of ourselves. So the Cups represent emotions, the Swords represent the intellect, the Pentacles are material things, and the Wands are like inspiration. So your passion and your inspiration. And there's a dozen cards in each of those. It starts with the ace, kind of like a regular deck of playing cards. It starts with the ace and goes through the, the court cards, the queen and the page, and the king, queen, page, and knight. So 3 of these cards that people really are afraid of are in the major arcana, and that's the Devil, the Tower, and Death. And then the 5 of Cups and the 5 of Pentacles also sometimes have like a, kind of a concerning connotation. But what we're going to talk about.
And 10 of Swords as well, right?
Oh, and the 10 of Swords. Yeah.
Yeah.
How could I forget? That's actually, to me, like
that's a big one.
That's like one of the worst ones. But there are some kind of interesting things that the 10 of Swords has to tell you too, that isn't really very, very alarming. It's just sort of eye-opening, which is I think what most of these are.
And one of the things we described, as you said, these are keys to unlock, which I think is a really great way to, it's not a lock. These are keys to unlock.
Right.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, you're not locked into this destiny. It's not like one of those horror movies where it's like, oh no, here's your destiny.
Right.
It's like, oh, here's the key. Don't like where you're at. You don't like where you're stuck. Well, here's the key to get out of there, just through self-awareness, right? Yeah. And I think that's really like the power of the tarot if you listen to it and you choose to take it that way. So
you want to start with like the Devil card? You want to start
let's start with that, but I just have a couple of other things I just want to talk about, which is when you're whether you're giving a reading, whether you're someone who wants to give tarot readings, or whether you're receiving a reading, a couple of things to keep in mind, especially if one of these cards appears, or any sort of card that you get a sort of nervous feeling about, is to just realize that the position of the card in the spread matters. So sometimes there's a position in the spread, like in the Celtic cross, there's the position of your hopes and fears. And so say you had the Death card in that position, it wouldn't mean you're going to die. It would mean you worry about that, or you worry about change, or you worry about, something happening that's, something being cut off. So
and the interpretation of the course is really interpreted well in the course, everybody. Just so
we talk about position. So the position and where the card lands is just as important as what the card is. The other thing is to know that there's a shadow side and a positive side to every card. So some are more negative than positive, some are more positive than negative, but just like everything in life, nothing is perfect and nothing is all bad.
That's right.
And the other thing is knowledge is power. Just remember, if you see something that you don't like, imagine if your house was burning, you wouldn't mind if someone called you or knocked on your door with the bad news that your house is on fire. You'd need to know, right? So you want to know, just don't be afraid. Nothing is, it's not a horror movie. This is just information you can use to live a better life.
And Liz, a reader that's reading these cards, how important is it that they cleanse themselves before reading, purify, or do some kind of a ritual in that they're very neutral when they read the cards, because they don't want to, it's not about them, right? So they've got to just be in that neutral space.
Well, the one thing we always say is you definitely want to be in a place, just like for this broadcast today. We got here a little early, we did a little meditation, we got ready. You always want to prepare yourself so you're coming from a place where you're not bringing the traffic with you, or you're not bringing the fight you had with your spouse, into your reading, whether you're giving the reading or getting it. You really want to be, just like everything, you want to be present, fully present.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump into the first scary card.
I'd say death. For most people, it would be death. What? Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Here's the death card. Yeah. And the death card, in a nutshell, is really about transformation. Right. It's about something has to end before something else can begin. And a common question is, well, could the death card mean that somebody is going to die? And sure, of course it could. But it doesn't need to mean that, it doesn't necessarily mean that. There are other cards that sometimes can mean that as well. But again, it's where it's how it is showing up in the reading. But what death is also is a reminder that death will come. So think about it. If you look at this card closely, under the hooves of the horse, there's a dead man, and he has a crown on his head. So it's a dead king. And you see there's a priest who's kind of trying to negotiate with death to save him. And there's a woman turning away from death. And then there's a child with flowers. And those are all representing like the different phases and the different ways that people approach death. So the child is sort of accepting, because the child is young enough to realize that it's a cycle and this is all just part of a cycle. And the religious man is sort of trying to say, well, if I do, how does this work? How do I secure my place in heaven? That's sort of, they're taking like the religious approach. And then the woman wants nothing to do with it and is just turning away and is in fear. Mm-hmm. But the king, who's actually dead, is here to show us, his crown is on the ground, that we're all the same. Nobody can escape death. No one has the power to escape death. And so that's basically what it's saying. And that message you could read into that, why not enjoy life while you can? Why not get the most? It's sort of a reminder, kind of like your readings of like, hey, how many times have you done a reading and somebody on the other side has said, don't keep this grudge going with your brother, or, forgive this person.
Forgiveness, big deal. Forgiveness is what it's about. Yeah. And transformation. And we die every day. The cells die every day and we're born every day. Life is about movement and transformation and change. And I think death is a good card to look at, because it's like maybe the endings of something, or how am I get, if this is all of that experience, have I lived the most of that experience, and how can I change? Right. Yeah.
And I think if you see that card as a reader or someone getting the reading, I think you should ask the question, is there something in your life that has come to an end? Are you making a career change? Are you moving? It could be something as simple as moving house.
And are you living the fullest of that experience? Are you living the fullest? Right. Because I think a hard life when people pass over is resentments. You don't have any resentments, no should have, would have, or could have. So it's a great, again, here you go, a key to look at your life saying, did I finish everything I needed to? Is everything finished up? Yeah. Right.
And also that reminder that, hey, maybe your life is out of balance, and maybe you're living your life maybe something needs to stop because you're not living like a life that you're going to look back at on your deathbed and be happy about.
Right.
It's all of it. It's just that reminder, the king laying on the ground is a reminder that no matter how powerful you are, death is inevitable. It's inevitable. And knowing that you can't escape it, how do you want to live your life? What are some things you want to do better at? How do you want to transform yourself?
I always say this, that having a successful life is at the time of death, is looking back at your life and being proud of the life you left behind.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at the people, there's a lot of people in this little card, and it's like, wow, the death is affecting all of them in a different way.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really
I think it's
cool.
pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool card. It's funny because to me, death doesn't even make me go yikes. Death. A lot of people like seeing the death card because they're like, okay, what's gonna change now?
Well, one thing you did, like we pointed earlier, and we talked about these elements and symbols in the cards. One thing that you helped me to look at was like each card is a piece of artwork. You know, when you go
Yes.
to a gallery and someone will see that part of the piece of art, and that part of that picture, the same picture, maybe all these different opinions. And really, what you helped me look at with those tarot cards, certain tarot cards, really what's going on in the backgrounds.
Right.
Like, oh wow, I never thought about that. That's right. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. Now the next card is the Tower. The next
Tower
one,
card.
and that one does scare me a little.
It reminds me of Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein a little bit. Right?
Oh, that's funny. And a lot of people call it the 9/11 card. Like it gives people a bad feeling. But you know what I noticed? I noticed it for the first time most vividly, just as I was kind of looking over my notes to kind of talk about today, which is how did I miss the big crown on top of the tower?
Oh yeah, look at that.
And there's a tie-in to the death card because there's the crown on the king and the death card. Again,
Right.
nobody, no one escapes, every life is going to have some chaos. And what if death is, if the word for the death card really is transformation and endings and beginnings, the word associated with the tower is kind of chaos and unexpected catastrophic change. Okay.
Wow.
So it's different. It's similar to the death card, but it's different.
And could it matter like the person that you're reading, obviously their position in life or their status or whatever they're doing, maybe they could look at it very differently. So let's say they're a high executive at a company and the company's going to change. Maybe they'll get the tower card. Could that be? Yeah. Interesting.
Sure. And something about the tower card also to keep in mind is the tower card is about so we'll talk about some of the things like the tower card is really, and you hit this right away when we looked at the tarot card when we were doing the course, is you said, oh, if you're at the top of the tower, you can see for miles.
Yeah.
You can see clearly.
And
that's funny because that is what the tarot card means, is that the tower card could signify somebody in government or a country or something where when something is revealed, say there's a political leader or a public figure and something about them is revealed and they get canceled. It's the end of their career. And that is really what the kind of thing that the tower signifies. But it could also be your own beliefs. It could be like, wow, I had this belief. I was part of a cult or a religion or something, and I believed this wholeheartedly. And then something happened and I saw things differently and everything just came crashing down.
Changes your belief systems. Yeah. Totally.
And you know what else I noticed with the tower is the Fool in the first card of the major arcana is standing on a cliff and he's about to jump off a cliff. And the tower has that same cliff kind of at the bottom.
Yes.
So again, it's like you're just launching yourself off into something new.
Wow. And also the thing about Rapunzel, I was my favorite nursery kid is Rapunzel, let down your golden hair. And here it is, this ivory tower. So you're locked in an ivory tower.
And that's the positive part of the tower is when you see the tower, you're like, you know what? Is there something you want to get out of? Is there an ivory tower or a limitation you've been locked up in like Rapunzel that you're ready to go diving out of, even if you have to go head first? Right. And I think that's the question I would ask somebody when the tower card is drawn is, hey, things are going to shake up and change and it may not be fun and comfortable at first, but think about what would you like to shake up? Are you tired of the way your family is treating you? Are you in a career that doesn't, fulfill you? What is it that you want to, what have you been locking yourself up and afraid to do that you could take the plunge?
Yeah. The truth can come to light. Flash of insight and hope.
Absolutely.
I just got a download, which I think is really fun. And I won't do it. You can do it, Liz, if you want. I don't think you'll do it. But can you imagine a restaurant and the dishes they handed out were on tarots, like tarot card plates, and they just gave it, and you look and see what you got at the end.
Oh, that would be great. That would be a great dessert thing.
A tarot cafe, yeah.
Tarot cafe. We didn't even talk about the lightning and the flash of enlightenment. I mean, we kind of alluded to it, but the big bolt of lightning you can't really ignore.
Right. Is that that's the light of enlightenment? Would you say?
That's enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
Which is really like, it's not just like change for change's sake. It's enlightenment and clarity has caused your tower to collapse.
Love
Right?
that.
Okay.
Love that. That's really, really new insights, and you're seeing things with different perspective.
And don't you notice, don't you love how the more you dig into these cards, the
Yes.
more there's layer upon layer upon layer.
Yeah, the layer upon layers.
And just like mediumship, there's nothing, you realize, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Nothing. It's just another way of learning. And are those 3 windows there in the tower that someone's trying to climb out of, or is that fire?
There's fire. The
fire.
tower's on fire on the inside. It's been struck by lightning on the outside. Like the tower is
it's gone down. Okay. All right. Wow. And the third card we have is one of the scariest people put.
Another scary one is the devil.
The devil. That's an Yikes card, but see, I don't mind the devil card. I kind of don't mind that.
You know what is really not scary about the devil card? The devil card is really, to me, the worst thing about the devil card is it's very much like, if you look, we'll just dive right in. The pentagon on his head is upside down. You see how he,
yes.
And that's because the point is actually representing spirit, and it's showing that it's really all about material things, not about spirit, not about spirituality. So the devil is really, people who are consumed with materialism and things that are not, not higher levels of consciousness.
Yeah, it's a low level. That's right. It's directed
low level, but it's not. And you even look at the 2 people, the couple, and they're the same couple that are in the Lovers card.
That's
and
right.
They have chains around their necks, but the chains are loose, and they don't look frightened or in pain or anything. They're just they're kind of just comfortable.
Yeah.
And the devil, the devil's not holding them by the throat. Like, it's just a very like, oh, you're in this kind of, you're trapped in something. You've given your power away. You may not even 100%. Realize it. Yeah.
When I see this card, I always think like someone's in, and it's so true of life. Someone's in a certain mindset, right? They're in a mindset and they can't get out, whether it's an addiction or whether it's a depression or whether it's whatever it might be, in a certain mindset, and they're stuck. This card to me seems someone is stuck.
Totally. And they may not even know that they're stuck. They might not even know that there's a way out. It's kind of like the person who's behind a wall and they feel like they're trapped in a cage, but they could just step around it.
Right, right. That's right.
It's exactly that. And the card is, when this card shows up, it's telling you that you're ready to set yourself free of whatever it is. The card doesn't show up if you're in that phase of the addiction, like say you're in a relationship and you're infatuated, but it's a bad relationship, but you're not ready to even think about getting out of it. You're probably not going to see that card. You're going to see the card when it's going to open the door and say, hey, you've been thinking deep down in your subconscious, or, you've been thinking every day, you need to get out of this. Something's not right. And this is telling you, this is confirming that, and you need to move on.
And it's very interesting. In mediumship, we talk about this quite a bit, and it really is true that the human mind, of course, can create many, many things, good or bad. And it's so interesting because fear, false ego appearing real. Fear is so big in this human dimension. It doesn't exist in the spiritual world, but the human mind can make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I look at this card, it represents to me that fears that people have, but they lock themselves in that, that sense of false reality, if you will, and they get locked into it.
And you know what's interesting about the devil card too? So you see how he's holding his torch, but it's upside down. So there's a lot of upside down.
Yeah.
So the story is upside down, the torch is upside down. And the reason the torch is upside down is because it's not enlightened. It's the opposite of enlightenment. Like, that's what the devil card means. It's like, you're not enlightened. Your eyes are not open. You're not aware of the possibilities. You're just putting yourself in a box.
Right.
And it's kind of fun to dig in and look. Like, you notice that the woman on the left, it has her tail. She has horns and she has a devil's tail, but her tail is grapes. And that's representing gluttony. And the fire is representing lust. So they're representing like 2 of the deadly sins.
Yes.
Again, there's so much to
there's so much. And of course, we talk a lot about it. So I mean, it's a pretty in-depth course about all the symbols that are in the cards as well. Now,
what do you think? Because I don't find the devil particularly scary either. What do you think when you see this? Of the 3 cards we talked about, which one does any of them give you concern, or what are your feelings about this?
No, I really don't. I mean, I just get, no, not at all, because it's just, again, like a key, and what it represents. I think that was a perfect interpretation, at least for me, was you're locked into a mindset, and it's a lower mindset, kind of addiction or depression. I think it's a depression card. And I think it's a mindset that you have the right to, you have the choice to get out of, to seek help or whatever what that means to you. But yeah, I think that's, to me, this represents that low level mindset, if you will. But I'm
I
not
agree.
afraid of it. I don't feel afraid of it. I like the art of it. I like the symbology of it all. And then, the layers that we're talking about, which is really fascinating to me.
I love the layers. And I love how the devil card, like there's no light. Usually there's like a little cloudiness, like in the other cards, there's a little bit of light coming through. The sun's rising. There's some clouds that are lighter, but the devil is just solid black. There's no, the devil is not that card is not shining light. It's saying, hey, you need to go out. You need to step away from this and step into the light.
Right. And I don't think it means black magic. I mean, maybe those same symbols for black magic, but I don't feel this card represents that. It's more that lower vibration, if you will.
Well, I kind of feel it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I don't really feel like the tarot is black magic-y, witchy at all.
No, I really don't either. It's like a book. It's like a guidebook to me.
I feel like it's the opposite. I mean, I just don't think that. I think it's just a way of getting to know yourself better. It's all how you approach it, but
that's the whole thing. It's always about the human that's using the tool.
Right.
So we got to always be very discerning between the human and the symbols of the tools, whether it's crystals, astrology charts, mediumship, psychic, work, psychometry. These are tools, but it's the human that has to separate themselves from that, and don't put yourself into that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the less you're afraid of it, the more you're open to it, the more you can learn.
Yeah, because if you're not, then it becomes about you and your energy, and that's not what this is about. You got to be pretty objective about the whole thing, and you're here just as a vessel to really interpret what you're getting, and it's got to be about the person, the cards, if you will, not the reader.
And that's why I wanted to talk about the 5 scary cards and why you don't have to be afraid, because I just think it's such, because everybody's seen the death card. Most people have seen the death card. Most people. There's a few tarot cards that just everybody's seen, and I think the death card is probably the death card, the Fool, maybe the Hanged Man, are like very common cards that people are familiar with.
One of the things you talked about in the course with the devil card also is one of what needs to concern himself with is getting too complacent and getting too comfortable in that mindset, right?
And you don't want that.
You don't want that.
You gotta break a few eggs.
That's right.
So now the 10 of Swords, I have to say,
it's one of my favorite cards, by the way. I do. I love the 10 of Swords. I like the 10 of Swords.
You like the 10 of? Okay, so I'm going to tell you.
I do.
I'm going to tell you something kind of funny about the 10 of Swords. So the 10 of Swords is, when swords are pointing down, that means bad things. When swords are pointing up, it means you're cutting through. You're winning. You're seeking the truth. You're getting clarity. But when the swords are pointing down, it can mean betrayal and loss and devastation. And the 10 of Swords is definitely you've got 10 swords and they're all pointing down.
Well, one of my common themes in my life lessons is betrayal in this lifetime. So that makes sense.
Okay. Well, maybe but here's the thing. So one of the things about the 10 of Swords, one of the alternative meanings to, watch out because someone's going to stab you in the back, which is the literal meaning of the card, is that maybe you're overreacting. Because one sword could have killed this guy, but he's got 10 in his back. So maybe you're overthinking, which I knew you were going to love. Yeah. The swords represent the intellect. It's like maybe you're killing yourself with your thoughts, and you're just overthinking and making things too complicated and being too dramatic, which is something you say all the time to people. Which as a spiritual teacher, you have to get out of your head. And
one of the things about this card, which I love when you look at it, and let's say he's lying down and looking, he's looking at the sunrise or the sunlight in the sky, which represents hope and a new day. Yeah.
Right. And he's also looking at the water, which means like things are going to change and things are, the kind of things are going to flow. The water symbols, the water and the mountains signal like you're moving forward. Wow. So maybe he's not really dead.
Right. Well, there is no death. Yes.
and also kind of like the Tower, the other meaning of this is like, you've come to the end of your cycle. So things have been rough, because it's the very last card. Things have been rough with the swords, but now things can only get better. Like you're gonna cycle through this, and this too shall pass.
Well, that's funny. That's my interpretation. Whenever I see this card, is the endings of things. You've gone through the worst of it, and it can only get better.
Right, and that's so true.
Yeah.
Right. But I thought I really liked the, oh, you're overreacting, you're overthinking, you're kind of tying yourself up in knots with your own thoughts. And it's like, oh, okay,
that's the thoughts, the cards, the swords represent thoughts, which is really interesting.
Yeah, your swords, your thoughts are pinning you down and paralyzing you.
Have you done a spread ever where you had those cards together, like you had the Death card, the Tower, and the 10 Swords? Did you have that? Have you had those spreads?
I have. I don't think I've had I don't get the Death card that much. I get the 10 of Swords a lot. I see the nine of Swords, which is the anxiety card. It's somebody kind of having a dark night of the soul, and then the 10 of Swords, which is kind of the ultimate culmination of all the scary things that can happen with the swords. I've had the 9 and 10 of Swords a lot. I see the swords a lot. But I haven't gotten the Death card. But sometimes you'll get a couple of, if you get a lot of swords in a reading, it kind of will symbolize, that there's going to be conflict. It's not going to be an easy time, but it's also a time of growth,
right?
And change and getting to the truth of things. And really, so many of the cards that are thought of as negative are really about cutting through the nonsense that we deal with and the lies we tell ourselves and getting to the truth, which can be hard.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, a quick question, Liz, from Charlene Miller says, your opinion on reading the cards upside or downside and right side up. What is your opinion on that? I'm reading cards upside down or right side up.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting because
that was such a great question.
It's such a great question, Charlene. And that's so hard. I mean, I didn't start doing that, until about 5 or 6 years ago, because it's like, wow, it's hard enough to remember 78 cards, even when you use your intuition to help you. And then to turn them upside down, like, whoa, that's just too many. But really, there's some different ways of looking at it, and you have to sort of intuit what the right way is. Sometimes it can be what this card is trying to tell you, you're somehow blocking it, right? So for example, the 10 of Swords reversed means, so it's not like the absolute flip side. So it's not like, oh, if the death card means transformation, upside down, it would mean stagnation. It could. Right? It could mean that, but it could also mean that you're blocking that transformation. You're doing something to block the card from realizing the meaning of the card. But also, like the reverse 10 of Swords, it could mean like temporary relief. So the 10 of Swords reversed means you may be getting temporary relief from a situation. So you may think that everything is fine, but it's only fine for a while. There's just like these little nuances. Or some people say that if the upright card means what's actually going to happen in your life, the reversed is more from a kind of intangible perspective. So it's the energy around that. So the 10 of Swords might mean nothing is really going to happen to you, but energetically you're going to feel, down. You're going to feel like you're held down and like you're being attacked.
Interesting.
Okay, but you're not going to actually have anything tangible happen in your life. So those are kind of some of the things. It's like one is kind of almost just the reverse meaning. One is that you could have this meaning, but something in you is blocking it. It can be sort of a nuanced meaning of the card, or it can be energetic versus actually happening in your life. So you have to sort of keep those all in mind and look at the card and look at where it falls in the spread and take it from there. And again,
what's your favorite suit out of all the suits? What's your favorite one? What do you feel resonate with you?
Well, I'm a Taurus rising. I'm a Leo, but I'm a Taurus rising, and I always really identify with the Taurus. And so I like the Pentacles because that's a very Taurus-y kind of suit.
Yeah, funny. Yeah. Okay.
I like the Pentacles, but I also really like the Cups because I'm a mom and I have children, and the Cups are all about emotions and children and family. So I'd say those two. And
I like the Swords.
Really? So you want to get to the truth?
Yeah.
You're not afraid, even though you tell people to get out of their head. The suits are all about, thinking things through and being very strategic and not being afraid of confrontation, not being afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, to be a medium, that took some courage, because you were one of the first, you were early on in the, and you weren't
I just know my truth. So I've never been afraid to express my truth, and it's just my truth, but never been afraid of it.
I mean, I think if you had to pick a suit to associate with a medium, it would be Swords.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because it would be, dealing with people. You were dealing with skeptics and dealing with people who didn't believe in it, but you weren't afraid because you had a mission to share this message.
Yeah, it's true. Wow. So right. Wow.
So we have two more. We have the 5 of Cups, and I also want to talk about the 5 of Pentacles. So let's talk about the 5 of Cups first. And people say that this is the saddest card in the tarot deck.
Looks lonely, doesn't it?
He's wrapped, but look at how he's wrapped himself up in this cloak of
He's
sadness.
contemplating, or it's contemplating.
And it's funny because I never, I was talking to someone and they were saying, "Oh, this is the saddest card." And I was like, "Oh, that never really seemed that sad." What that card also represents is you've got the three cups that are spilling over, but there are two cups that are still standing up. So it's sort of saying, be grateful for what you have. Don't just cry over the spilt milk.
Right.
Look at the cups that are still full. And it's just sort of an evolution of like life is going to have some sadness, but you have to appreciate the good things in life.
And also, Liz, when I see this card, it's almost like, don't forget your own power. Like wrap yourself up and remember who you are. That no matter what happens in life, you have your power. You have yourself. You know who you are, and nothing can take that away.
So you think, and you see how there's a bridge in the background on the right?
Yeah.
The bridge is showing that you can get over this. You can, this is all about, you're sad right now, but this is going to pass. But I love the fact that you think that you see the cloak as being like wrapping yourself up
in your power.
Is it like a protective cloak or a powerful?
No. To me, it represents that they're bringing themselves into their own power, self-awareness, self-power, that they have the power within. And it's kind of like, 40 days in the desert. Jesus spent 40 days, 40 nights in the desert to find his power. This is what it represents to me. Is like, I'm taking the time to be alone, a solitude, to engage in my own power and to bring my self-awareness up of who I am. No matter what life has to give me. There's always a hope there.
Oh, I love that. And I want to hear like kind of your thoughts on these, because your intuition, you're the one that came up with the tower, you can see for miles. And that the more I dug into what the tower means, and the more I started like really meditating on it myself, the more I realized, wow, that really is that enlightenment. That being struck by lightning and that realization, that eye-opening, changing everything. That's what that's about. It's really about being able to see clearly.
When we did the course, and during the course, it spreads. Okay. I think that, but just really naturally. And Liz would say, somebody like, "Well, this is how I interpret it," and we just built this course basically with a lot of that, my intuition, what I felt with the card. Right. So a lot of the course has that in it.
Right. I mean, we really pull a lot of things together because you could sit and you could study these 78 cards and you could lay them down, and it would be really hard to do a fluid reading just by memorization. It would take you a long time to become familiar enough. But if you can look at all the symbols, like you look at the 3 cups that are spilling over, and you look at the 2 cups that are not, and you look at the bridge, and you know what all of that means, and you see the cloak, and then you intuit, like, what does that cloak mean? Is that person sad? Are they thinking? Are they resting? What is that person feeling? And you just tap into that intuitively. You can get a really great read on that card.
And sometimes, Liz, what happens, I think, is when you turn one card over and you'll see one thing will stick out, or 2 things stick out. Right. But the next time you see that card, maybe another aspect, and the part of that card you didn't see earlier comes right out at you.
And also, like, say you pull 2 cards and you see, oh, how do they relate to each other? Like the cards, it's not just one card. Like each card is not like a single unit. They tell a story. And I love, and we were doing readings in the course.
It was great. The stories.
And they all really I was so happy, because sometimes they don't always tell a really cohesive story. Sometimes you really have to talk to the person and figure it out. But these cards told, every one of them, these spreads we did told really clear stories about what the person had in store. And what was,
and it was beginning, middle, and end. And it was like, that you would turn the cards over, they must flew off the table. It was like, wow. And it's almost like when you're reading them, they get brighter. It's like, oh, wow. It's really...
And remember, we'd pull like a card and we'd be like, oh, this one, okay, got some trouble ahead. And then you'd pull another one and be like the magician, or it would be, a really wonderful card, the world. And we'd be like, oh, okay, everything's going to be good, and it was just like the way the story goes. It's just like life. It's like, oh, you have some hardships and some struggles. And then at the end, things are good. You benefit from what you've learned.
Yeah, it's waves. It's waves, really. We live in waves. Yeah.
It's waves and cycles. And that's sort of, to me, that takes, even when you look at, the 10 of Swords, it's that last card in the cycle, which means, okay, things are going to get better again.
Yeah, it's true.
And then there's the 5 of Pentacles, which also, because I'm a Pentacle person, the 5 of Pentacles always makes me a little nervous.
Now I like the architecture, so maybe that's my Gothic.
You know what? That's actually not the 5 of Pentacles. That's the 3 of Pentacles. But the 5 of Pentacles looks similar. But what it is
It
it's
has that Gothic look as well. The Five of
yeah, that's
Pentacles. Yeah.
Five of Pentacles looks just like that. And
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, we got them mixed up. But what it is, it's two people, it's two beggars in front of a church, and one is on crutches and they're limping along and it's snowing. And it reminds me of the little match girl. Remember that story?
Sure, of course.
But they're in front of a church window, similar to that, but it's a stained glass window. And what it's showing you is, even though you've fallen upon hard times and you might feel isolated and alone, or be having, struggling with your health and feeling like, this is really like you're in the winter of your life and things are not going well, you always have to have faith, and that there's always a higher power to help you through.
True.
So that's really the Five of Pentacles. It means, hey, things might get a little shaky for a minute. And maybe because Pentacles are always about material things, it's not like, oh, you have limiting beliefs that are holding you back. It really is like, oh, you're probably going to have some sort of hiccup. Maybe you'll lose a job. Maybe you'll lose some money. Maybe,
health problems, perhaps.
Health could still tie into that. It's
But
going to be
under that stained glass window, which is hope, right? Hope and faith, and life goes on. There's always a hope and faith in that.
Right. It's you're not alone, and you have
clarity.
to realize,
Or see the bigger picture. It's just a moment in that time. Yeah.
And just the fact that, just like the Five of Cups that we were just talking about, the Five of Pentacles, because it's a 5 card, you're right in the middle of the journey. It goes from 1 to 10. So the 5 means, oh, you're transitioning. Nothing's going to just go smoothly. In the middle, you're going to have a little bit of a reckoning or something.
And Liz, which is really interesting, because in life itself, and it happens to all of us, certain things happen to us, whether it's a loss, whether it's an illness, whatever it might be, and we don't know what time we're going through it, what this is about, what's going on here, and we don't know until much further out in the future why we had to go through that. We have more insight later on. Same thing with this card, right in the middle of your journey. You might not know at that moment, but it'll bring you later on. You'll understand it better.
Right. Like the 5 of Cups that we were looking at. You've got your 3 cups. You might be like, oh my gosh, I lost my job and I lost my house, but I have this wonderful relationship and I have a great dog or something, like you've got some positive things going too. And when you're on your deathbed, you're going to look back and you're not going to think about your job and your house. You're going to think about the relationship you had, the relationships and the people you love.
It's true. Love you left behind.
It's true.
Yeah.
So as you've really been diving deep into the tarot with me, with our course, have you had any interesting revelations about it? Because I know of course you've created oracle cards over the years.
So different. The oracle cards are very different than these. These are intuitive cards. These are very much divinely in tune. I just think when I was working with the cards here and doing anything today, the layers that exist and the different interpretations, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, or get better connected you feel. And I always, like I said just earlier, every time I do it and I see that same card, but I've turned it over before, I see something different. It could be the same card, but I see something very different the next time.
And I get different feelings from the cards, and those feelings you're getting from the person you're doing the reading for.
Totally.
I think sometimes, and some of the cards for somebody make so much sense. And remember during the course too, we were talking about, oh, this card reminds me of this person, or this card really, when we were talking about our videographer, there was a card that represented him. And
his reading was phenomenal. I mean, it was so on. It was scary on. Yeah.
And that's where it's funny. When you're looking at the suits, like the major arcana, when you're looking at the Fool and the Magician and the Hanged Man and the Death, and we're kind of familiar with those cards. They're easier to learn and remember. But
what's your favorite card of the major arcana? You have one favorite?
I love I like the Hanged Man.
I like the Magician.
What?
Yeah.
I just love him. I think I love that he can handle being upside down and still be so calm and so happy. He's just surrendering. Like you talk about surrender. And I think the Hanged Man he's the poster child for surrender and just opening yourself up to, enlightenment. I mean, he's a very enlightened card. And I also like,
and when he hangs upside down, things aren't always as they appear.
Right.
Right.
And it's also about turning yourself upside down and just seeing things a different way. Because I really,
right.
I don't like, and that's what, I was thinking too, like some of these cards that are so negative, they're either saying stagnation is bad, like the opposite of the Tower and the opposite of the Death card would be stagnation, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine if nobody ever died and nothing ever changed and everyone just plodded along in their same job and their same, that would be so boring and so
boring. That's right. No,
Um,
dynamics.
and the hangman is saying, you don't want that. Like, turn it around and look at things differently.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Right.
so did you, how would you like to wrap up? Did you want to give me your impressions of some cards? I could
Yeah,
hold up.
yeah. That's great.
I'm gonna go ahead and
We did this in the course, everybody, and it's just so great because this
okay.
is how what it means, and I just do intuitively what it feel like. Let me see this one. This is what card is this?
That is the 8 of Cups.
Okay, let me see again.
Is that the 8 or the 3? Yeah, that's the 8. Sorry, I don't have my glasses.
That's okay. I have my glasses on. And it's so hard to see. Is it a person?
So it's a person in a cape, and he's walking away from the cups, and they're stacked, and he's kind of going on a little journey. So he might be.
See, I think to me, it's like lost opportunities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see it like lost opportunities.
Or moving on.
Lilia says, walking away from the things that no longer serve you. I love that too. That interpretation.
I like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. Wow.
I mean, whenever you see the water in the mountains, it's like you're kind of moving on to bigger things.
Yeah, transformation.
Yeah, it's a very transformative card, and it's toward the end of the cycle, toward the end of the journey.
Oh, let's see another one. That'd be great.
Behind. So let's do another one. Uh-oh, well, we already talked about the tower, so let's. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. Oh, hold on.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, now what is that one? That's
the King of Pentacles.
Okay. I don't know. It's kind of a weird card for me. It just seems that someone who has thinks they have control over others but doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that weird? Weird. What do you feel it's from? What it's about?
Well, Pentacles are, again, about material things.
Okay.
So maybe to kind of spin off of what you're saying, it's saying that because this King of Pentacles is in control of physical things, maybe it's a person who has money and feels he can control other people through his money.
Yeah.
I think that might be what you got. But
is there a chain in the card? Is there like a chain? Is he chained at all anywhere?
No, he's not chained. He's holding like a scepter with a ball on it, and he's got a castle in the background, and he's got his pentacle. Yeah. He's got his foot on something. But he's got like a wrap around him, like a cord around him. And I think
it gets in his own way.
Outfit, but yeah.
It gets in his own way. Or his outfit doesn't work. His power does not fit. His power doesn't fit him. Yeah. Really.
But also like the kings of all the suits, one of the things we talk about is if you look at the suit and what it means, so pentacles are about material things, then if you're the king, you have control over it. So in theory, if the traditional meaning of the card is like he's got money and he's got power and he's got all the material things, but it doesn't control him. He controls his money. It doesn't necessarily control him. What you're getting is, but he's not able to control other people with his money either.
Yeah.
Like maybe the money doesn't control him, but maybe he's trying to control. And we all know you can't really control much.
And it's so funny because I'm doing this. Of course, I think it matters. The person that you're reading, you'll pick up on their energy as you're spreading the cards. So that's a big factor involved in this as well, huh?
But that King of Pentacles could be, it could signify, because sometimes there's something very specific. So maybe you do a reading for someone and you say, hey, is your father trying to control you by giving you money, by supporting you, but you have to do things their way, right?
Very interesting.
That could be a very traditional, that could really make a lot of sense to somebody in a reading. A lot of times I find the king cards for people who are like younger, like my son's friends and stuff, represent they're like, wow, that really represents, a parent.
Right.
Another
one. This is one
last one. The Wheel of Fortune.
Okay, hold it close to the camera if you could, because my eyes aren't great. I think on this one, anything can happen.
Okay.
And I'm sure who you are, and it's like, to me, it's like a compass. And
it is.
I get like a compass, and just like you can go in any direction you choose to, and you have to live with what you choose.
That makes sense. That's pretty much what the Wheel of Fortune means. It kind of means that life is good and life is bad, and you roll the wheel and you take your chances, and but it is sort of cyclical when things are not always going to be good. They're not always going to be bad. Like life is going to go on. You have to kind of.
Wow.
And it's got like a little demon at the bottom of it, which I think is interesting. kind of. I mean, I always think of this little red demon at the bottom as, whoops, why can I not do this? As fate, like fate is sort of hanging on to that wheel.
Oh, that's funny. So I wouldn't see that. Wow.
I know. I like him. The Wheel of Fortune used to make me nervous for some reason too, because it felt to me, because I like to be in control of things, and the Wheel of Fortune felt like, oh my gosh, it was a reminder that you can't control everything.
You can't control everything, and there's so much going on, and so many possibilities, so many options, so many choices.
Now that I'm older, I know that I can't control everything, so I've sort of let go of that.
Yeah,
so now that card doesn't bother me as much anymore. Like it actually doesn't bother me at all. But it used to kind of scare me, and I don't, even more than the Tower. Like the Wheel of Fortune used to make me nervous.
So they're not good or bad cards. They're just signposts. They're keys. Exactly.
But you're kind of like, oh, this means like, things are going to happen that are going to be out of my control. There's nothing wrong with that. But, to me, that was like, oh, I don't know that I love that.
It's all lessons. We're all learning lessons with every turn of the card. Yeah. And our next date to come together is Thursday, isn't it? We're doing something
Thursday, we have a free webinar. So people should, we'll be sending out emails and we'll be posting it on social media. And we can also post a link to that webinar to register. There we go.
There you go.
Do you have the link in there?
There, Thursday, October 24th. Mm-hmm. And we'll do readings. Tarot card readings.
We won't be specifically talking about the Yikes cards. We'll be talking about all the cards, and we'll be talking about the course and answering questions. And these typically are fairly, we usually will have, 50 or 60 people, but we really are able to talk to a lot of people in those webinars. So, and people, we talk to them live, we'll do readings. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I look forward to this for many years. We've worked on this. Many years this has been in the works, this course.
So just jump on James's Facebook page and you can sign up for the webinar.
Yeah. And if you're into the course, go to my JVP School of Mystical Arts and you'll see it right there.
Right. Yeah. And it was so much fun doing this with you, James.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, it was great. It's great.
And I find it so interesting. Like the more you dig it, what I'm excited about is doing this course, we're able to give people just enough information in a kind of fun and fresh and easy way to really understand the cards. And then they can take it from there and just keep, you don't have to wait till the end of the course to start doing readings. You can pull a card for yourself or do a spread for yourself, for your friends, all the way through. And the more you do, the more you're going to learn and the more comfortable you'll be.
And you enhance your intuition, which is really what it's about, is enhancing your intuition. Your knowledge.
Well, that's what your school is all about.
Yeah, that's what school is all about. So it goes hand in hand. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope to see you on Thursday, and I hope to see you in the school. And thanks, Renee, who's been our producer today. And maybe we'll see you all on Thursday. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Bye, everyone.